Good morning. Good morning, friends and family. Welcome to the spring commencement ceremonies of Baylor University School of Law. This is a day of memory. It's a day of celebration. And to open our ceremony this morning, I call upon a member of the graduating class, Sammy Lutz, to ask a blessing upon our time here together. Sammy.
Before we begin, I want to say that I was raised Jewish, and in my tradition, this isn't something that we would usually bow our heads or close our eyes for, but that said, I invite you to do what is ever your custom during a moment of prayer or personal reflection. I should also mention that in the synagogue I was raised in, a standard Saturday morning service is about 2 to 3 hours long. I don't plan to speak for that long, but if I'm a little long-winded, I hope you'll forgive me. It's in my blood. Lord, our God, King of the universe, we thank you for the gift of life and the privilege you've bestowed upon us to be here today, celebrating our achievement of earning Juris Doctorates and graduating from Baylor Law School. We thank you for the blessing of being able to attend such a fine institution and for all the service workers who have made it possible for us to enjoy that blessing. The janitors, food service workers, maintenance workers, office staff, and technology staff. We thank you for the professors who, for 3 long years, have served as teachers, mentors, and oftentimes friends in our hours of need. Finally, we thank you for our family members, some by blood and others by choice, and for our friends and classmates who made life worth living even its darkest moments. Lord, as we don our doctoral hoods and take the first steps into the legal profession, we ask for the blessings of your wisdom and your guidance. Though we may sometimes stumble and falter, hurt and oppress, may we find the compassion and intelligence to choose mercy wherever possible and to work only towards justice and fairness. Lord, we know the law is a powerful tool, and whether we go forth into courts or legislatures, whether we represent individual clients or the state, we ask that you guide our hands in the application of that tool. I'll close now with the Shechechianu. The Shechechianu is a traditional Jewish blessing for rare, special occasions or for the first time something very special happens. I can't imagine a better occasion than this. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shechechianu v'kihimanu v'chichianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has granted us life and sustained us and allowed us to arrive at this time. Baylor Law class of 2022, let's do this.
Very appropriate and moving.
Thank you.
Please be seated, class. Thank you, Sammy. Sammy was chosen by his classmates to deliver the invocation, and a bit later in the program, Jeff Surface, the highest-ranking student in the class, will also speak on behalf of the class. Sammy, thank you. Very moving, very appropriate, very appreciated. This is a day of celebration and memory, as I noted. This is a special day, not just because it's commencement, but let me put it in perspective. March 2020, we're all familiar with the month and what happened that month. Many of the students today who will become graduates by the end of this ceremony, graduates of Baylor Law School, began their journey in February of 2020. Some earlier, a few maybe a bit later, but that was a divide point for us in regard to our commencement ceremonies. The last non-COVID commencement ceremony we had was in February of 2020. Since that time, we have had 4 or 5 graduations in which we had to only live stream. Family and friends could not be present. Even at those graduations, everything was done with COVID protocols, 6 feet distancing and the like. The graduates, for instance, had to pick up their own diploma instead of it being handed to them. More recently, we've maintained a masking requirement at the Law Center and at our graduation. So I'm going to begin by saying this is awesome to see everyone gathered here today. I was driving in this morning on I-35, and I could not also help but take note of the fact that this class has never seen I-35, never seen I-35 being normal during their 3-year journey through Baylor Law School. My understanding, it will be complete, they say, in about 10 months, but of course there's a saying that I-35 will never be complete. So it's a reason to celebrate today. Hey, class, we have shared with you in the robing area how proud we are of you. We have told you that you come to this place today after a long journey, but I now want to point out what is obvious, but we must articulate it. None of you have arrived here today on your own. Since you took your first breath, you have been nurtured, you have been loved, you have been cared for, you have been disciplined, you have been guided, you have been counseled by those who love you, your family and your friends. And I speak, of course, of moms, dads, spouses, wives, husbands, partners, children, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. I could go on and on. They have made it in a real, concrete fashion possible for you to, in your own stead, of course, earn this honor bestowed upon you today. But they've made it possible because they have been there alongside you. Sometimes they've been behind you. I can't help but note that as you look through the program insert where the graduates express their thoughts at this point, almost every one of them focuses upon family and friends. So class, let's stand up and let's do first things first. Turn around and let's express thanks to those who brought you here. These students have been through the mill, and not just because of COVID and I-35 construction. They've been through the mill because they've gone through Baylor Law School. Baylor Law School is well known as a place, as it's been said for decades now, where fun goes to die. We put a lot of fire underneath of them from the first day to the last. They have passed through the program and they have done themselves proud. The reason the law school is so well known for our rigor is because we, the faculty, owe an obligation not just to our students. We owe an obligation to those whom they will serve in their professional lives going forward, those whom they will serve in a personal, non-professional capacity. Those are the people that need to be taken care of. Lawyering is essentially a profession which is a service profession. It's a profession in which those who have problems that they cannot handle themselves, look to lawyers, look to Baylor lawyers to help them ethically, efficiently, and effectively reach an end that is desired. Service, so critical to our mission. We are a faith mission law school. The students know from my talk to them on the first day they are here at orientation that we take our faith mission seriously. I articulate to them that in their lives they must always be mindful that they have a vertical dimension and a horizontal dimension. The vertical dimension of our lives is to glorify God. The horizontal dimension of our lives is to serve the kingdom. And what a wonderful gift, class, we are given as Baylor lawyers to have the aptitudes, the skill, the knowledge, the training to make that happen for others who cannot make it happen for themselves. That is why being a lawyer is a privilege of the state, a privilege that's hard-earned not only through the 3 years of the Juris Doctor program, but of course through the bar exam, which is a trial in and of itself. Service. We're going to send you out today, class, to be servants. You know, at the law school, we have a clinics and pro bono program. It's been in place now for about 14 or 15 years. My colleagues and I are very proud that over the course of those 14 or 15 years, our programming in the clinics, in the pro bono clinics, which is service at its best, have received 14 awards from the American Bar Association, the Texas State Bar, and the Texas Access to Justice Commission. That is something I like noting because it is such an exemplar of what a faith mission needs to do when the wheels hit the road, when the rubber hits the road. Next, it's not Veterans Day, it's not November, it's not Memorial Day, but I have for years done something at commencement that I think is quite necessary to put us in the right framework of thinking about our profession. The armed forces. The legal profession places us as lawyers in a position of being the guardians of the rule of law, the guardians of our justice system, now perhaps more important than ever. We would not, within our profession, be able to do what we do as a guardian, as guardians of the rule of law and the justice system, but for the security that the armed forces offer to us across the nation and around the globe. There is a symbiosis between the legal profession and the armed forces, so seldom noted. I will say, though, that we have a remarkable veterans clinic being located just, of course, about 50 miles from the largest Army installation in the world. And with that said, I would like all the members, we even have a class member, I would like all the members of the armed forces, and that means active, retired, reserve, to please stand and receive our appreciation. You can turn on the morning shows when you get up each day as you're getting dressed and ready to go out into the world. You can listen and you can realize that, unfortunately, our nation has a lot of false heroes, utterly false, phony heroes. They don't deserve our acclamation. They don't. Those of you who just stood, you're the heroes. You rock. You're real heroes. Joining me on the stage this morning, I have several of my colleagues. I'm going to introduce our speaker, Professor Jeremy Consular, just a bit later. In your program, you have full biographies of each of my colleagues, and therefore I'm going to keep my introductions here very short, but they're very long on sincerity. First of all, I'll start over here. As the water drops. Associate Dean Pat Wilson. Dean Wilson is a senior faculty member, been with us almost 30 years. Dean Wilson came into the Dean Suite in her position as Associate Dean this past summer. She's been absolutely wonderful, so appreciative of everything that you do, Pat. And wow, what a blessing you have been. Angela Cruz-Turner, our Senior Assistant Dean. We all work together, we're a triad, along with the rest of our wonderful, incredible, remarkable team at the law school. Thank you each for being here and all you do for our students. Coming over here, we have Professor Jim Underwood. Professor Underwood, what a great teacher, my heavens. And Larry Bates, what a great teacher. There's one specific thing I do want to call to your attention, keeping true to my promise, I'll keep this brief. I could say a whole lot about Professor Bates, but I must acknowledge he does have the best hair on the faculty. Every day in our classrooms, in our courtrooms, you've heard about practice court, family and friends, in our classrooms, in our courtrooms, in offices, in soft seating through the corridors, our faculty and staff colleagues make it go for these students, for Baylor Law School in the fulfillment of our mission. Sammy, thank you for noting that in your prayer. Faculty and staff make Baylor Law School go. We're so proud of what we do. We're so thankful for being able to do it. And I want now, in addition to those I've just noted on the stage, I would like all of my faculty and staff colleagues, and they're spread throughout the audience here, please stand and receive our appreciation. You make it happen. I'll now call upon Jeff Surface. Jeff is the highest ranking student in the class, and that is an accomplishment among 75 graduates that we have today. Jeff, you're on with the class. Before, the program, Jefferson Floyd Surface. I saw that earlier this week on a mock-up of the program, and I thought, who is that? And then I realized, oh, it's Jeff. Jeff, come back. You don't get out of it easily, please.
Thank you, Dean Tobin. I'm really humbled to have the opportunity to speak here today on behalf of our graduating class. And so I think it's only fitting that I spend my time here this morning thanking three groups of particularly special people on behalf of myself and my peers. First of all, thank you to all the friends and the family who traveled here to be here this morning. I know, as Dean Tobin mentioned, that I-35 stretch through Waco is not known for being quick and easy, so we appreciate you being here. And to all those loved ones who couldn't be here this morning and are watching the ceremony one way or another, we're thinking of you on this very special day. It isn't always easy to have a law student as a close friend or loved one. I'm not sure when it happens, but at some point along the way, you can't get a straight answer out of us anymore. We start making a bunch of really bad legal jokes and puns. We're in a perpetual state of stress and worry because thanks to the court system, our next set of final exams are never more than 9 weeks away. We're always busy working away at whatever exam, exercise, or other existential crisis is consuming our world at any particular moment. But I think that I can freely say on behalf of every one of my peers that not a one of us would be sitting here today about to graduate from this law school without you standing by our side through thick and thin. Every time over these past years, and it happened a lot, we got knocked down, it was you guys that picked us back up. And so getting to share this day with you really does mean the world to us. Second, thank you to my peers and my colleagues. Getting to go to school with you all these past years has been nothing less than an honor. When we were first starting, I really wasn't sure what to expect as far as how the dynamic of our class was going to be. It's no secret that Baylor Law prides itself, maybe a little too much, on fostering a competitive environment. I think all of us had heard the horror stories about just how competitive Baylor Law students could be. And I don't mean the good kind. Stories of how people would rip important pages out of library books and slip mistakes into outlines before sending them on and really doing whatever they could to get ahead. And so frankly, when we first started, I was a little terrified of you guys. But when you fast forward 3 years, it is crystal clear that those stories could not be further from the truth. Our class, maybe more than others before us, has faced down a lot of challenges together. COVID-19 and the snowpocalypse among them, but none more did we face together than PC over this last year. There's something about shared suffering that brings people together. And throughout PC, I was constantly awed by the selflessness, by the spirit, by the courage that you all showed day in and day out. Whenever someone was on call, you could see all those around that poor soul passing notes and whispering answers and doing whatever they could to help. Whenever someone had an advocacy exercise, you couldn't be near them for 5 minutes without hearing the calls of good luck and you got this raining down from all around. Whenever somebody landed one of those oh so precious job offers, you could feel the genuine joy radiating from all who heard the news. And in particular, I'll never forget how loud the roar of the cheers were for Chris and Emma after facing down all 4 of our wonderful PC professors after that advocacy exercise. Or how hard we all cheered that day of PC3 when Mason Busby came down to collect his PC award, which could not have been more deserved. And finally, on behalf of my graduating class, I'd like to thank the faculty and the staff for everything that they've done for us during our time here at Baylor Law. While we may have disagreed pretty strongly with some of the choices that they made at one time or another, we are so thankful for the time, the energy, and the passion that they've poured into us over these past 3 years. They've instilled in me a love of the law and the legal system that I don't think I will ever lose. The truth is, I came here to Baylor Law and law school in general, in part because I really didn't know what else to do. I didn't like the look of any of the jobs I was applying to out of undergrad, and I certainly didn't have any sense of calling or purpose. I applied to law school in part to avoid the real world, in part because my mom had done so before me, and in part because of Tom Cruise's cross of Colonel Jessup and a few good men. Trust me, I didn't say any of that in my personal statement. So, one of my most poignant memories from law school was actually from orientation, from Professor Sayre's opening lecture. He played this montage of all these famous lawyers, some fake and some real, from movies and historical events. He talked about Atticus Finch and Clarence Darrow and the Nuremberg trials. He was in classic Sayre form, running up and down the stairs of the Thunderdome, fired up about the rule of law and the very idea of us joining the ranks of this esteemed legal profession. He's fired up about today. He told us that day that there is nothing more empowering, more noble, more fulfilling than being a part of justice, true justice, being done. And it was in that moment that I knew I had found myself in the right place, that I had found what I had been looking for so long. And so today, as we end our time here together, receive these diplomas, and go out into the world as Baylor lawyers, it is our responsibility to carry on the ideals and the beliefs that were instilled in us here in this place. Each and every one of us graduates has built a platform, at times through sheer will and determination, that we can now use to make a true difference in people's lives. And I am so excited to see the great things that all of you will accomplish with those platforms in the years to come. Thank you.
Well, Jefferson Floyd, thank you. My colleagues and I made some decisions that you didn't agree with. We never noticed. Escaped our attention entirely. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for that closing comment about this is all about making a difference in the lives of others. That's why we're here as professionals and as Baylor lawyers. I'm delighted to introduce my colleague, Professor Jeremy Consular, for comments, remarks to the graduating class. I'll start out with something that needs to be noted. I haven't kept count, but Professor Consular is a perennial favorite as a commencement speaker, and we have 4 commencements a year. And I think he's somewhere up around 7, 8, maybe 9 appearances as commencement speaker. And you do a different speech each time, don't you? We believe you. Professor Consular joined us in 2003. He was a standout when he went through Baylor Law School. He's a double bear. He received his law degree from Baylor Law and also his MBA from Baylor. As a student, he burned up the track, both academically and, of course, on our advocacy teams. Our interscholastic advocacy program is huge at Baylor. We're very successful. And when Jeremy was here, he was an apex competitor. After graduation, he clerked for Ronaldo Garza of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and then joined the firm that is now simply known as Bracewell LLP. He was in the trial section. We were blessed to have him come back to the law school to join the faculty. Professor Consular sees the students, if you will, at the bookend moments. He teaches civil procedure. First up, first quarter, they see Professor Consular. Then he is one of our practice court team. He sees him at the end. And he's always commented that he has the blessing of seeing how our students develop, to see, if you will, the before and the after as our students have gone through our program. He is a teacher. I have observed him. He is a teacher who has the wonderful ability to put the students in a position, and let me know if I'm right, class, on this. You don't want to disappoint Professor Consular. You just don't want to let him down in your recitation and in how you react and respond to his questions. Also, he has a way of, as you know as well, putting you in your place if you're not up to snuff. But he often will weave in a little humor. But nonetheless, the point is made that you are not up to snuff and you need to do better next time around. That ability in the classroom is rare, and Professor Consular, he has it. He's the author of 4 books. He is an expert in his areas. Some years ago, he took a 6-month sabbatical from the school because he wanted to get a better sense of what it's like to practice in the criminal law space. And so he went on sabbatical for a period to join up in the McLennan County District Attorney's Office to get experience there. And that, I think, is so indicative of his constant march to excellence. He is the director of our popular and very well-received Academy of the Advocate in St. Andrews, Scotland. Been on hiatus for 2 years now because of COVID, but we get started again come this July. Many of the students in the graduating class, a few I should say, had the ability to be a part of that academy. The impact that Professor Consular has upon this class and upon the law school has been profound. Class, you've made a wise decision to call upon Professor Consular to share remarks with you today. Jeremy.
Dean Tobin, Dean Wilson, Dean Cruz-Turner, colleagues, parents, grandparents, husbands and wives, family and friends, welcome to this celebration of a great accomplishment. Now, family members, I know what you're all thinking because it's the same thing I always think when the graduation speaker takes to the podium. How long is this guy going to talk? I want you to know that short graduation speeches are my specialty. They're a habit, no applause yet. They're a habit I developed of necessity years ago when another graduating class selected me to be their speaker. I went to a colleague, retired now, Professor Mike Rogers, for advice about giving a graduation speech. He said the key to a good graduation speech is to recognize that no one is in the audience to hear you talk. They're in the audience to see their loved one walk across the stage. So keep it short, he said. And to make sure I kept it short, Professor Rogers said that I would lose 1 tenure vote for every minute my speech went over 15 minutes. Professor Rogers concluded his advice by saying, "Just remember, nobody cares what you have to say, and if it takes you too long to say it, we'll fire you." Graduates, being a part of your commencement is a special privilege, but I also enjoy it because over the years it has confused my children. My wife Jennifer and I have 3 of them, a son Jack, 2 daughters, Brett and Kate. Historically, my children have been thoroughly unimpressed with what I do for a living. When my son was about 4, someone asked him what I do for a living, and he said he types on the computer and sometimes he talks to people. As the years passed, my son Jack acquired a better understanding of my job, but it did not raise my status in his eyes. For a short time, as Dean Tobin mentioned, I worked as a prosecutor here in McLennan County, and we often drive past the courthouse, I and my children, the one where I worked. It's a beautiful building, and my kids like the idea that I spent some time working there. While passing the courthouse, when Jack was about 9 years old, he said, "You know, Daddy, I think I might want to be a lawyer like you one day." Finally, a little respect. But he continued, "I just don't understand why you would work at Baylor instead of the courthouse. When I grow up, I'm not going to be a lawyer who works at Baylor like you. I'm going to be a courthouse lawyer." He paused, and in the ensuing silence, I could almost hear the wheels turning inside his head. After about a minute, Jack said, "Well, I'll be a courthouse lawyer as long as they make as much money as the lawyers who work at Baylor." My experiences with Jack led me to believe that I had to take a different approach to impressing my younger daughters, Brett and Kate. At another graduation, when the girls were little, it provided me with the opportunity I needed when I was decked out in my regalia, a long flowing robe and a hood. My daughter Brett was about 4, and she asked me, "Why are you wearing that robe, Daddy?" I knelt down, I looked into her eyes, and in a hushed, secretive tone, I said, "Because Daddy's a Jedi." I'm still not certain what career path my children will take, lawyer, Jedi, or something else entirely. But graduates, I can tell you this: if one day one of my children sits where you sit today, I will be very proud of them. I will be proud because I know how much work it takes to be able to sit where you sit now, and the good character it requires to do what you have done. So family members, congratulations and rejoice, because your beloved graduates are outstanding young men and women, and they will continue to make you very proud. Graduates, now we've come to the part where I'm supposed to share some wisdom. This is a problem. First of all, let's assume I've got some wisdom to share. Don't you think I should have shared it with you by now? I mean, we've been here together for 3 years and I get paid to teach you. So I'm not going to try to give you any wisdom. Instead, I have a request. It's going to strike you as an odd request, at least initially, but what I want from you and the rest of your generation is something I think we are sorely lacking in our society right now. And it's this: civility. That's what I want from you. Here's why I'm making the request. This is not just a graduation. It's not just the end of something. It is a commencement. It's the beginning of something. And it's not just the beginning of your legal careers. This commencement is part of the process whereby we gradually hand over the responsibility of leading our communities, state, and nation to a new generation. And as lawyers, you will play an outsized role in bearing that leadership responsibility. Indeed, the track record of Baylor Law's alumni makes it safe to assume that many of you will serve as elected officials or in other high offices in our state and federal governments. So I think this point on civility is important for you. Now, when I say civility, I don't mean formal pleasantries. I mean it in the sense of being a good citizen, especially in the way we conduct our public and political discourse. Graduates, what you see from us, especially lately, from the older generations, the name-calling, the demonizing those with whom we disagree, and even violence and threats of violence, is not an example you should follow. We are leaving your generation with some big problems, as you well know, and you can't solve them unless you can improve upon the older generation's recent track record on the civility front. I think you'll have to fix that one before you can fix all the others. Here's just one example of a problem you will face. You're going to have to address our national debt. I know, I sound like a codger, even to myself, when I say that, but I think the problem is reaching a critical mass. We have come to a point where the national debt exceeds the size of our economy, and it continues to grow. You won't be able to kick the can down the road like we've done so far. Your generation is going to have to solve the problem by making the tough choices we could not. Here's another example. Scientists tell us that human activity may have caused irreparable damage to the planet. Now, I'll rush to say I'm a hypocrite for even mentioning climate change. In private practice, I was what you call an environmental litigator, and let's just say I didn't represent the Sierra Club. I was never on the same side of a case as the trees or the baby seals. What's more, I grew up in Humble, Texas. I don't know if you know anything about Humble, Texas, but think pine trees, cows, and pump jacks. It suffices to say that in Humble, Texas, pulling fossil fuels out of the ground is kind of what we do. So to meet this challenge, you'll have to persuade people like me to make the sacrifices necessary to solve the problem. And you'll have to overcome more than just the financial disincentives associated with it. You'll have to convince people that carbon emissions are heating the earth, melting polar ice, raising sea levels, and that drought, famine, cataclysmic weather, and animal extinction are going to make it far harder to live here on this planet. As the great Westerosi philosopher Tyrion Lannister once said, people's minds aren't made for problems that large. That's just a couple of the things you're up against. And these two problems might not be the ones most concerning to you, but I use them here because they're of a piece, in the sense that they are getting worse, which means they are increasingly difficult to solve. They are also similar in that so far we have been unable to reach consensus about how to solve them, or even whether they are actually problems. To be sure, reasonable substantive disagreements exist about best solutions, but why haven't we been able to reconcile those differences and find some common ground? I think an erosion of civility and the quality of our discourse largely is to blame. To bring a new civility to our nation, I think you'll have to end, or at least moderate, the all too common practice of demonizing people who disagree with you. This should come fairly easily to you, graduates. I don't remember any of you ever asking a judge to grant a motion because one of your opponents was a bad person, even if you thought they were. But it's an entirely different story in our public discourse. I'm a news junkie. I read and watch all sorts of it, from the most liberal to the most conservative. I see this practice, this demonizing practice, most on primetime cable news, radio shows, and especially the internet. The message is this: this person is bad because they disagree with us. Or don't believe this person's argument because they are bad. Such ad hominem attacks seem like intellectual comfort food until you actually meet one of the demons. The demon who desperately wants that border wall you loathe is a widow who spends her days praying over every name on the church prayer list and making meals for shut-ins. The demon who wants an expensive government-funded health care program is just struggling to pay the medical expenses of a beloved aging parent. Now look, people's personal struggles and desires don't make them right on the issues, but they can help us understand that they aren't demons either. You can sit down and talk about problems with widows and caregivers. It's hard to do that with demons. If you're going to solve these problems, graduates, you'll have to speak to people with whom you disagree. As lawyers, I think you need to lead others by example in the proper way to make compelling arguments without levying personal attacks on your opponents. You can improve civility by being willing to compromise on solutions to problems. Imagine that you're sitting down with a group of people to discuss an issue. Maybe it's a church meeting or a school committee meeting or a meeting at work. And someone in this meeting says, I'm not even going to discuss the issue. Give me 100% of what I want or I'm going home. That's not leadership. That's not virtuous. It's childish. We don't tolerate that kind of behavior in our work lives or in our charitable work, and consequently, it rarely happens in those contexts. We expect a give and a take. In contrast, we not only tolerate it in our public and political discourse, too often we root for it. And we celebrate it. Graduates, it's okay to drive a hard bargain. We want you to drive a hard bargain. Just don't forget about the bargain part. I'm not asking you to abandon deeply held convictions just to reach a compromise, but an unwillingness to seek common ground should not be one of those deeply held convictions. Only spoiled children get 100% of what they want 100% of the time. As you begin lives of service and leadership, graduates, I hope you'll remember that your idea of perfect is often the enemy of the good. Tell the truth. Tell the truth, even when it's hard, and demand the same from other leaders, even the ones you like. I know you learned this in law school. We taught you to never surrender your credibility, not even when a lie might give you a temporary advantage. I wish all of our elected leaders and officials would adhere to that principle, but even they deserve some grace and forgiveness. After all, who amongst us has never told a lie at some point? I confess, however, that I tend to reserve that grace and forgiveness for the liars I generally agree with, rather than the ones I don't. I'll watch a politician dodge, conceal, or distort an inconvenient fact, or just falsely claim it isn't a fact. And I'll let it slide, because I like what the politician is trying to accomplish. I'll see a different politician whose point of view I don't agree with use precisely the same tactics, and it will outrage me. Graduates, I think you've got to do better than me. I think it's important for you and your generation to demand consistently the unvarnished truth from all leaders, even if they're on your side. We are bombarded from all directions with spin and outright lies to such an extent that it has become difficult to discern what the truth is, what the facts are. If law school has taught you nothing else, I hope it has taught you that you can't solve a problem until you accurately identify it. To restore a meaningful civility, you'll have to be willing to make the hard choices. The problems I mentioned earlier, the national debt, climate change, I use them as examples, not because they're the only problems, but because they are problems the older generations haven't fully confronted. I think the simplest explanation for why we haven't is because we decided to make your choices more difficult. so that ours could be easier. I don't think you'll have the luxury of laying off these and other problems to future generations. You're going to have to make the choices we have avoided. My dad once told me that I needed to learn the difference between a difficult decision and a decision I wish I didn't have to make. A difficult decision is when you reach a fork in the road and you're not sure which path to take. But sometimes you are certain about which path to take. You just don't want to walk it. Our inaction on problems such as these has foreclosed some of the paths that might have otherwise been open to you had we acted sooner. So what is left to you are not so much difficult decisions as they are questions about whether you'll have the courage to walk the remaining paths. Despite the tremendous challenges you face, I'm optimistic about your generation's ability to overcome them. I believe you do have the courage to walk the hard paths. But not everyone shares my confidence in your generation, and that's putting it mildly. A recent Forbes article summed it up this way: criticizing your generation has become a national pastime. According to one description of you, you are narcissistic, entitled, and lazy. Really? Lazy? You're the only ones who are lazy? My internet browser history includes the following: what are the best ninja movies on Netflix? You aren't. Laziness is painting with too broad a brush. Here's what I see. Your generation has already led on issues that have befuddled older generations, like climate change and gun violence. You don't seem as divided by things like race and religion as previous generation. And here's one that frankly makes the criticism of you upsetting even to me, and I hope to you as well. Your generation has fought bravely in wars you didn't start, that began at a time you can hardly remember. And who are we to criticize you anyway, when our incivility is largely to blame for leaving you with profound problems? The sword lies in the stone, but we don't draw it. Rather than uniting to solve our biggest challenges, we tend to bicker and call each other names while the fires rage and the oceans rise. So frankly, I hope the criticism of you puts a chip on your shoulder and you go out and lead like a generation with a chip on its shoulder. I think you've got what it takes to improve civility in this country and to solve the big problems. And I know for a fact that the Baylor Law graduating class of 2022 has what it takes. I know what it took for you to reach this point. To paraphrase Winston Churchill, you haven't journeyed all the way to the milestone we celebrate today because you're made of sugar candy. We don't give diplomas to snowflakes. So I want you to grab the sword by the hilt, pull it from the stone, and show the rest of us how it's done. Become the leaders we all need you to be. Thank you, graduates, for the honor of teaching you these last few years. Stay in touch, and God bless you.
Professor Consular, you told us an untruth at the outset of your remarks. There's a statement that you had no wisdom to share. You do. Your remarks on the incivility and the demonization that we see in our society, the public square and the private sector, every day is something that you, class, you have to tackle. Everyone will have to regain the footings of our nation. The time has now arrived for the conferral of the degrees of Juris Doctor. Will the class please stand? Dean Wilson.
What a wonderful day it is. Dean Tobin, Each of the candidates before you have completed the requirements for the degree of Juris Doctor as prescribed by the faculty of the School of Law and by Baylor University, acting through the authority of the Board of Regents. It is my pleasure to present the class to you for the conferral of the degrees.
Thank you, Dean Wilson. Each of you have completed the requirements for the award of the degree of Juris Doctor as prescribed by the Baylor University School of Law. Accordingly, upon my certification, the certification of the faculty of the School of Law, and on behalf of President Linda Livingstone and the Baylor University Board of Regents, it is my delight and pleasure to confer upon you the degree of Juris Doctor. We will now go forth to the award of the diplomas and the hooding of each of our graduates. Friends and family, I need your attention for a moment. This is a ceremony that is one that deserves our respect, deserves our acting appropriately. But we have a long tradition at Baylor Law School. And that tradition is, as the name of your graduate is called, you are to make as much noise as you possibly can. And if you feel reticent about that, if you're shy, remember this. We measure the depth of the love that you have for your graduate by the decibels that you produce. Let us go forward.
Benjamin Hal Abbas. Maximilian Edward Atchity, magna cum laude. Jacob Andrew Vasquez. Chase Robert Baumgartner, magna cum laude. River Scott Berry, magna cum laude. Noel Larkenberg Bottorff. James Mason Busby, summa cum laude. Rodrigo Carbajal. Zachary David Charland. Jonathan Paul Cooper, magna cum laude, special distinction in estate planning and leadership development fellow. Elizabeth Candler Davis. Mia Dolores Deano. Jake Dixon, magna cum laude, special distinction in business planning. Cassidy Kayla Durfee, special distinction in criminal practice. Mackenzie Ray Eccleston. The following student is also earning a Master of Business Administration. Audrey Erin Edwards, cum laude, special distinction in business planning. Kyla Dion Farrell. Alejandra Garcia Castro. Before moving to the next graduate, I want to note that Alejandra graduated cum laude. Jacob Brian Hadges, summa cum laude. Natalia Soraya Hamilton, Special Distinction in Criminal Practice and Public Interest Fellow. James Jackson Hayden. We will recognize two graduates not in attendance today. The first is Catherine Elizabeth Helm, cum laude. Luke William Hill. Zachary Librand Hobbs. Lainey Howard.
Goose is receiving his Juris Doctorate.
Caitlin Ann Hudeman, summa cum laude, special distinction in litigation. Dallas Nicole Jackson, summa cum laude. Nicole M. John, special distinction in intellectual property. Lauren Elizabeth Johnson, cum laude. Marshall Grant Jones, cum laude. Elizabeth Noel Coe, cum laude. Nicholas Alexander Laquito. Colin Scott Luna, cum laude. Samuel James Lutz, cum laude. Peyton Marion Maddox, cum laude. Colin Still Mance, cum laude. Joshua Travis Marquette. Alyssa Noel Mattingly. Matthew Brandon Maupin. Denitza Sydney McBain. Lee Terrell McBride. Nicholas E.J. McHenry. John Benjamin Meredith, magna cum laude. Bridget Lynn Meyer, cum laude, special distinction in litigation. Asher Kindred Miller. Elaine Renberg Moore. Jacob Alexander Munoz. Jeffrey Howard Myers, cum laude. Jesse Lane Nelson, magna cum laude. Emily Page Norman. Noah Wesley Patrick. Andrew James Patterson, magna cum laude, special distinction in litigation. Sydney Lane Pickrell. Katie Quillen, cum laude. Deborah Rao, cum laude. Andrew Ian Rollinson II. Christopher Manuel Ruiz, Special Distinction in Litigation and Public Interest Fellow. Melissa Samano Ruiz. Sam Wesley Schmidt. Madeline Grace Sedgas. Jefferson Floyd Surface, summa cum laude, highest ranking student in the graduating class. Hunter Mitchell Slocum. Aaron Michael Smith. Alexis Winter Smith. Molly Mae Smith. The second graduate not in attendance today is Michael Brian Tillender. Hunter Richard Torme. Daniela Sofia Vikulchik, Special Distinction in Criminal Practice. Emma Rose Vinke, Special Distinction in Litigation. Paul Alexander Wagdalt. John Shepard Waterhouse. Harrison Quinn Watson. Cody Michael White. Richard Dean Wilson. Daniel Abraham Yu.
Let's hear applause for all of our graduates. Family and friends, Professor Consular and I were conferring up here, and we have decided henceforth we're going to have different awards on the decibel matter. There will be a best group, best individual performance, best chant. You did great. You really did. You all get an award. As we close now, I want to thank Professor Consular for your wisdom, Jeremy, your wisdom about our national divide, about what lies before for all of us, but especially generationally for you, class. You have a lot of work ahead, but you will accomplish it because you're Baylor lawyers. And I want to remind you that our profession is about service. Go out and serve. Make a difference through your service. The law school has an alumni association, and there will be a reception at the Law Center following our adjournment today. We will immediately recess to the front steps of Waco Hall for the class photo. But then the graduates, if you do not know your way around campus, will help you back to the Law Center where we will continue the celebration. I want to note at the Law Center, the doors will be open all through it so you can see where your graduate has said that he or she has shed blood. They can show you the crime scene. Also, if you desire to be outside, we have a tent on the lawn facing the river, and you can enjoy the socialization there. This wonderful ceremony, one of memory, comes together because a lot of people work on it. I want to especially, though, thank Susie Daniel from the Dean Suite. I call Susie now the poobah of graduation. Also, Jerry Cunningham, Nick Texera, Meredith Meyer, Jill Stewart, Kendall Smith, Maury Sanchez, Taylor Chung, Madison Kovach, Ricky Levetsky, and Chris Griesmer, as well as the Waco Hall IT gang that helps us as we come here. Thank you to our photographer, Eric Google, and also Mr. Sam Day on the cello. Thank you, Sam. So appreciate it. The 18th century cleric John Wesley said, do all the good you can in all the places you can, at all the times you can, by all the means you can, to all the people you can, for as long as you can. That's good advice, class, to end our celebration today at Waco Hall on. God bless Baylor Law School, and we are adjourned.